Hello and welcome to another video tutorial here on understanding body language, liars, cheats and happy feet. I hope everyone's alright and having a good day. It's blowing an absolute gale here in Lancashire at the moment, so I'm just off to the gym, but I thought I'll upload this quickly and see if we can spot anything untoward. Now the video in question I've got for you is a UFO one from Staffordshire. It was filmed in the 70s, and this lady's talking about an event that happened in the 50s. So let's just start the video and let's see if we can spot anything untoward.
Spots in the sky, lights in the sky, strange things. But the strangest of all was seen one day over this cottage. Mr. and Mrs. Rustenberg were living there quietly out in the country. And, well,
so this is Mrs. Rustenberg. Okay, so here's the lady who's going to be telling about us what she saw that day. So let's start the interview and let's see if we can spot any of her non-verbals coming through. Now, bearing in mind she's an old woman here. She looks potentially in her 70s. So let's just see if we can spot anything.
What? You just tell me what you saw.
Well, this was one ordinary day. I was waiting for my husband to come home from work, and my two sons went to Staffordshire to school, and I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire, a sort of noise, you know.
So let's stop it right there. So first thing I noticed here is she's bobbing around like a boxer during his warm-up. Just look at her initial starting point. And no, she's bobbing.
I was waiting for my husband to come home from work.
So disregard what she's saying.
Went to Staffordshire to school.
So she starts to bob. She's moving here, but it is very windy, so don't look for that. So she's bobbing around. So I've got a lot of questions saying that people bob about when they're feeling nervous. However, look how strong that wind is. So we can't rely on her bobbing about as being relatively accurate for decoding anything, because we can't, because there's actually a reason why she's bobbing about.
You know, and my first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought.
Okay, right. Yeah. So let's start again with the actual analysis. We can't rely on her bobbing.
I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant.
So the first thing I noticed there is when she says noise, she tenses her eyelids. Watch her eyelid behaviour.
From work, and my two sons went to Staffordshire to school, and I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise.
Terrific noise, and it makes that particular facial expression, which is congruent with that terminology. So whenever you hear that particular terminology,
I heard this terrific noise. It was
terrific noise, and the eyebrows come down, and then we see eyelid behaviour. Now that's indicative of honesty. If you were to say the same paragraph to you that you heard a huge noise somewhere, you will flash the eyebrows down and use eyelid behaviour to get your point across. So this lady's done that.
Giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire, a sort of noise, you know. And the first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that.
Okay, now that is not indicative of facial expression. If you said a plane was going to crash, what would you flash on your face then? You might flash fear. So if you thought your children were outside and you saw a plane, or you heard a plane going to crash.
I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something.
I thought a plane was going to crash, and she makes that particular expression there. And she also makes a gestural retreat. However, we can't read too much into that because it is tremendously windy where she is in Staffordshire. But that is not the specific facial expression I would associate with what she's talking about. So we've got inconsistent facial expressions already just with that particular expression there.
Like that. And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find my two sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the...
Now that's good, because she's allowed for additional information there by saying she slipped on a jumper.
I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that.
So that's inconsistent facial expressions.
And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find...
So slipping your jumper on is nothing you wouldn't necessarily need to talk about. However, it's good that she's had that in there, you see, because that sounds like it definitely did happen. You wouldn't include that information if you were falsifying, because it's too technical. So that this bit of information here sounds the truth.
My two sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Well, naturally, I just said, "Come on, don't be stupid. Come in the house." But felt sort of a strange sense.
So let's watch that little passage back again.
In front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Well, naturally,
So look at the gravity-defying behaviour there with the shoulders.
Flying saucer. Well, naturally,
Good.
Just like, come on, don't be stupid.
Double-sided, disbelief. These are all good signs.
But felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see.
That's good. Now, when she said about pump,
where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this. All I can describe, this huge Mexican hat.
Now that particular facial expression there is congruent with what she's saying. Watch your back.
Come in the house, but felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump.
Now that's good. Now know what she did there. She broke eye contact and moved her head in a different direction when she said she went and found the water. Now watch that again.
Sensation.
When she says pump.
Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had.
Now to the side of the house, and then she moves her head away. Good sign. Very good sign.
Side of the house to where we...
That little head movement there, round there, is a good sign, because whenever you're talking about the side of something, or you went around the side, often you will move your head around in that particular direction to wherever it was. So, in essence, she might have moved to her right then, and we can see that that particular facial movement is good.
We had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see.
Now the note there is also good as well, because she said looked up, but her eyes looked up before she said it. Watch it. Automatically looked, stopped it there, and the eyes are going up. So that's a good sign as well.
Up to see.
So her eyes are showing her what she did before she actually said it, which is good.
All I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing. And it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. A dome. It was tilted to sort of... I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it.
Now then, what's interesting there is when she said, I said something in it, I saw them in it, no, the head nods.
I saw people in it.
The head nods come down. Now then, if you hadn't actually seen that, potentially your head doesn't shake in that, because your head and brain know the truth. And often your limbic responses leak out. This lady's head movements here, when that guy asked that question...
There were 2 people in there.
What's up?
These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a pageboy.
So we're seeing use of now of illustrators.
Describe them.
Now don't forget, illustrators help the audience understand the verbal communication. So what we can see here is she places her hands up.
Like a pageboy Bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old king.
And now look at that particular expression there. That's encouraging the person to believe us.
Like the old kings.
Yeah, the old kings, head down, eyes up, eyebrows up. So that's almost to try and make us believe that particular expression there. So she's asking to believe just by that particular expression there.
And the colour of the hair was golden.
Now that was there.
The hair was golden.
Was golden, and that particular expression there, slightly interesting, that one. Pacifier.
They had a sort of a polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me.
So she's used the word tilted twice here. So obviously she's actually potentially talking about something that actually happened here, because we're seeing repeated mirrored language.
Were you looking at them through windows, through portholes?
No, not portholes. It was just sort of the...
So that's a spontaneous correction. No, not porthole. A deceptive answer there would have been yes, because it would have taken less thinking up if the other person has created the information for us. So don't forget, when we falsify information, we're always looking to either agree with the person who's interrogating or interviewing us, because it's a lot easier to use their answers than create ones of our own. However, she doesn't do that. There's an opportunity there.
No, not portholes.
No, not portholes. If she was falsifying this information, she would have would have been able to use that particular segment of information there and ran with it, because he's finishing the answers. However, we don't see that here.
It was just sort of like a cockpit, I suppose, that had this perspex or glass or whatever it was. They could see me anyway, and I could see them. And they had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than...
So again, we're seeing use of illustrators.
You know, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had round their heads.
So we're seeing more use of illustrators here.
And they just looked. And I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over.
Now then, that's an interesting facial expression. She talks about fear, however, doesn't flash it on the face.
And they just looked. And I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although...
So we don't see any consistent facial expressions with the verbal communication there. Whenever you talk about fear and you were generally feeling that particular emotion, you would flash.
My mind was ticking over.
Now that was an interesting little segment she's put in there about specific content analysis, that bit there. Watch that a little bit again.
I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over.
So that's a bit of additional information she's voluntarily given up, which has no real relevance to the story she's telling us.
And they looked so sympathetic that I was just mesmerised for what seemed to be ages, but it could have only been seconds.
Now then, that particular facial expression is good. Watch it again.
I was just mesmerised for what seemed to be
ages, and the eyes shut. And that's a good particular expression. Whenever we talk about something like this, often we see this particular facial expression. We didn't see this before when she said about fear, but however now when she's talking about ages, we see a good facial expression which is consistent with the verbal communication.
And I turned to sort of look down at the boys, was unaware that they were with me because I was so absorbed. And the next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
Now then, remember that little bit then.
The next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
It was gone.
How low had it been?
It had been the height, I couldn't tell you. But the house that you've seen, it was just on top of the roof. It was hovering on top of the roof.
How big was it compared with the size of the house?
It swallowed the whole circumference of the roof.
So now we're using illustrators, and look where the hands are now. The hands are high above, just like I'm doing now, to show it was above something.
The whole circumference of the roof.
Again, comes with honesty.
I couldn't see, the roof was completely blotted out. The chimneys, I couldn't...
Also, what we're seeing here is pupil constriction and not pupil dilation. So don't forget, pupils dilate when we're fearful, whenever we feel fear. She doesn't feel fear here, which is interesting towards the later on in the interview, where she says she doesn't really feel fear. We can see there definite pupil constriction.
All I could see was this massive object that I described as like a Mexican hat without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see.
Now, what's interesting here is she contradicts her story slightly. So listen to this next bit.
I looked up and it had gone, but I assume it went straight up, because for a short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my two boys, "Well, can you see anything? Can you see anything?" And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton wheel in the sky.
Right, now then, let's just scoot back to what she said then.
Without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see.
I didn't see.
Looked up and it had gone.
So I didn't see and it had gone. So gone meaning it's no longer there. She's looked up and she's obviously looked around and it's gone.
But I assume it went straight up, because for a
So what we've got there is inconsistencies now appearing in the story.
short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my two boys, "Well, can you see anything? Can you see anything?" And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton wheel.
Okay, right, Joe. So we've gone from gone to looking around for it, to her son's pointing it out, and now watching it. So I think this is an example of what's called a text bridge, where there's inconsistencies in the timeline of this particular story. I don't think she's got the order right in this story, because you wouldn't use the word gone if you were looking for it. It would be gone when you'd watched it with your sons, and she's described it as like a cotton wheel.
And they said, there it is, Mum, and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton wheel in the sky, and it circled us 3 times. It went round.
But then it will be gone, you see. So she's used there a word associated with gone, meaning it's no longer there, but she's talking about it in the wrong terminology. She's using the wrong tense here.
3 times, and then it just shut off.
So we see
3 times.
the number 3. Okay, statement analysis research, the number 3. I don't know if you can see this. There's a lot of research done with deceptive answers using the number 3. It's often referred to as the liar's number by Mark McLeish. So it's very interesting, that particular exchange there. So we're seeing examples here.
Round 3 times, and then it just shut off. And that was it.
And that was it. So there was no gone there. That was it. And we can see his particular facial expression here. It's a relatively neutral face, to be honest with you. Let's continue.
I have to analyse myself afterwards. I fear that I might have had an hallucination. But then I knew I hadn't had, because my sons were so sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen. And it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't...
A secret weapon from Russia. Okay, now then we're seeing these facial expressions and inconsistencies.
So sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen, and it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't be that, because if they had something like that, they wouldn't need to fear anybody or anything.
Okay, that's interesting. They wouldn't need to fear anything or anything. There's no information that she's given us that the thing that she saw was fearful of them.
Because if they had something like that, they wouldn't need to fear anybody.
So again, we're seeing inconsistent statement analysis here.
Were you scared by it? Did you run indoors?
Oh, I was petrified.
I was petrified. Now, don't forget, with fear, pupils dilate. Even when we're talking about something that happened a long time ago. This lady here is talking about something that happened a long time ago, over 20 years ago. However, when we still fear that feeling of tremendous fear, God only knows what she must have felt like. Having seen a UFO land above a house and see the occupants, your pupils would dilate massively. But unfortunately, we don't see that particular expression here. We just see pupil constriction.
I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. I was paralysed with fear.
So we see paralysed with fear, but we don't see it on the face.
But now I wouldn't be. Because now, when I look back, I think, what an amazing thing to have happened, and for me to have seen it.
And when your husband came home, where were you?
Well, when my husband came home from the office, I was locked in the house with my children.
Now look at the pacifying gesture she makes there, look.
When I came home from the office, I was locked in the house with my children.
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of scratching of the face, hand-to-face gestures.
Under the kitchen table that we were using.
Under the table?
Under the table, yes.
Under the table, and make that particular facial expression there. What can we see there? Lips compressed, pulling down towards the side, tightening around the eyelids. What's that? Concealed happiness for me, that one.
Table, yes.
Can that be an example of duping delight?
It's funny now when I look back. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this is the truth. This happened. And that's it.
So that's interesting, because someone who actually saw something like that would actually say those particular words.
That's it. We were ridiculed. It was very embarrassing at the time, and people, they possibly thought, oh, she's a nutter. But who cares? This is something that's happened to me, and I'm a practically minded person, and that's it.
And that's the end of the interview. So there we go. So my concluding thoughts. Well, I've seen a UFO in real life, obviously, and I've got to say, when I saw it, I was absolutely paralysed with fear, just like this lady says. Happened to me a long time ago, but I'll never forget it. What I see here is I see flashes of honesty, and I see inconsistent facial expressions, and I also see examples of missed timeline during stories by the end, when she said it was gone. which is very interesting there to note. Now, let me just scoot back because she might.
Oh, who cares? This is something that's happened to me, and I'm a practically minded person, and that's it.
Now then, what's interesting there is a tear forms.
And I'm a practically minded person, and that's it.
We can see, as she says that's it, we can see a tear just form in the corner of the eye there. So that is the tear gland, okay? So we've got the tear duct and the tear gland. We see a tear form there, you see, and what could that be indicative of? Fear. So potentially, I didn't notice this the first time I watched this video actually, so it's actually the first time I've seen this particular expression here. She's flashing fear and we can see that little tear in the corner of her eye there. Now what would that come with? That would definitely come with fear, obviously, and we can see pupil constriction there as well. So that's very interesting. What I think here, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that this lady is potentially, for the most part, being honest. I only see very faint signs that she's potentially concealing information. Now, don't forget, with storytelling, most people will try and conceal information. They will try and not to falsify it, because falsifying creates problems, big problems that can be detectable. And that's where body language comes in. But with concealing information, you won't leak anything because you're not necessarily talking about it. You're avoiding talking about it. There's a few times throughout this interview where this lady could have jumped on the back of what the guy said. Did you see them through a porthole? She said no, we saw them through a cockpit. So again, she's relying on what she claims to have seen, and she doesn't necessarily need to rely on anybody else's information, which is very interesting there. I've missed the fact that a tear formed at the end. That can be indicative of fear, and I think there are some inconsistent facial expressions in this story, there is no doubt. However, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this lady, in my opinion, what she's talking about actually happened to her. I can see very faint signs of potentially concealed information. We've got problems with the timing and the text bridges and things like that, but for the most part, whatever this lady saw, it looks like it actually happened. So with that in mind, if you'd like to learn more about body language, then please check out my Facebook page, Understanding Body Language Lies, Cheats and Happy Feet. Got to say a big thanks to Mark McLeish and his statement analysis work. I do a lot of work on statement analysis, so it's good to know, along with my body language stuff. So all you need to do is just click Understanding Body Language Lies, Cheats and Happy Feet. Just click that page. All my videos are on that. I've done a lot more body language videos on my YouTube page as well, so please click those and share them as much as you can. So I do hope you enjoyed that analysis here on Understanding Body Language Lies, Cheats and Happy Feet. I do love UFOs and stuff like that. I find it very fascinating, very interesting, and especially when people are talking about it like this lady was, when she was talking relatively truthfully about what she saw. So with that in mind, any questions or feedback, please let me know, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. And don't forget, the truth is out there. Take care, and bye-bye for now.